Good afternoon, Dr. Brad. It's Tuesday, May 14th, 2024. How are you this afternoon?
I'm just grand.
You ready for a working session?
Of course I am. After our nice little chat we just had.
We just had a short, yes. Would you do me a favor and tell the audience what a working session is?
Kurt, I want you to know this is why I became a doctor, because I like issuing orders more than I like receiving them. So you hit like, hit subscribe and the notification bell, and then you start thinking about your comments now, because we want to read them.
Oh, God. That was good.
All right.
All right. So, audience, he bosses me around a lot. All right. So,
oh my.
So, would you mind telling the audience what a working session is and what? From a chat?
Working session is put your seatbelts on. This is going to be a minute, and it's just hard going. So we just really are impressed by people like you who are bold enough and spend the time and are interested enough to watch us grind through this and make it work. And it's fascinating work to participate in, and I can only imagine how interesting it is to just passively listen to it. It's work. It's a lot of work, and it's like, wow, but it's fascinating to watch it happen because it's creative work. It takes time and it takes shape, and it's watching it occur is just a creative wonder.
So effectively, we're pair programming the draft of what we call a pamphlet, but it's really the logic, right? And so it means you're going to sit around and watch us deliberate the meaning of words, how things should be phrased, whatever. All right. I like to put that on there so that people who—
That's a fair warning is what we call that.
It's a fair warning. All right. Boom.
That was exciting, the boom part.
Boom. I got to focus. All right. I'm going to share my screen. And well, let me tell what we are working on the embodiment chapter. And the embodiment chapter starts with the need for homeostasis, which is some need for survival. Homeostasis produces need for survival. And that we use the nervous system to identify what to do and maintain homeostasis. And we're building up through the basic principles, and we're having a little problem.
Oh
my creation.
It's interesting to me that in our work this week, in the last 7 days, no doubt it's caused me a shift in my consciousness to understand exactly what Kirk means, which is like it is simpler than you think it is. Consciousness is not that complex. And it's like, it's almost humiliatingly, I would say, humblingly, he would say humiliatingly. And I understand it. And now I want you to know the purpose of this pamphlet is to cause you to understand how Kurt thinks about everything, anything. That if we accomplish the objective, they will be able to understand.
Okay, let me correct you there.
Oh my!
No, I'm teasing you. I struggle to think with the least difference from the world, the universe as it exists, that is possible to produce with human thought and language. Right? That's what I struggle to do. Right? Because that means I can testify and construct everything. So when you say think like me is saying, well, I would like you also to think with the least divergence from the world as it is.
With the most coherence.
Correct.
What's interesting is like this. It's like, yes, this is the most correct pattern of thinking that I believe I can imagine. And it's like we're making it work to be able to cause you to understand it. It's not that hard. But it is what's the beauty of this is the first chapter of the pamphlet, which is embodiment, which is how all of us understand everything, and unavoidably so.
Mm-hmm.
It's causally related chain of logic. Now, I think that's an adequate introduction.
Yes, let's just I want to add one little bit to tie it all up with a bow, so to speak. What does the first principle mean? It means it's irreducible.
That's right.
So if we identify in ordinary language or in somewhat of a stilted operational language, it may be a little more difficult than ordinary language.
Ordinary
We
language, right?
construct in human language a logic of first principles from the first principle, which we have. Then it is the least variation from the world as it is as possible, which is why we can eliminate the greatest quantity of error or deceit, which is really the objective in from the ideas. So I don't know how you can make it more parsimonious. In other words, because the principle is pretty dumb simple, right? It's like the positive, negative charge together make increases mass and energy. Okay, I don't think you can get, or entropy is the release of pressure, right? And energy density and mass is another way of releasing pressure without without the expansion of the universe. So, which produces survival. So I don't know how to really reduce that any further. I'm sure the physicists would say, yeah, we want to know the math. Like, I only want to know the math insofar as I need to be able to identify the first principles. After that, mathematics, which is a measurement, is redundant, right? I mean, it's redundant for the purposes of testimony. It's not redundant for the process of engineering, right? With applied science. Anyway.
Without further ado, I hope you will begin sharing, sir.
I will. I was hoping to get in the next section, explain it. I was starting out with the confusion we're having over the past couple days is my fault.
Oh.
And I'm going to try to, what we're going to try to do is finish correcting my introduction of confusion. All right. So I'm going to work on that. We're going to work on
We'll call this Kurt's confession then.
Why is the share and end share record? Why are they in the wrong place? Nuts.
Kurt, God knows.
Where's the freaking? Okay, I see what the problem is. Now I gotta cancel that. I gotta hit share screen again. Zoom. Share screen.
The magic happens.
Bing.
Maybe.
Bing.
There we go.
And then, as usual, I have to.
There we go. Hierarchical computation on the right, and the how does a neutron function on the left, with GPT in the middle.
This is. I asked the new ChatGPT, which is ChatGPT for Omni. I don't know why they didn't just say Omni. It's not that much work. I asked it to take a look at what we've written so far, and what it did is convert some of this text to bullet points. And I'm not, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. So anyway,
here we are.
I'm going to go back to the beginning and so get us back onto. At least it'll say, at least now it really does remember what the hell you're talking about.
Interesting.
Right? And it can write in my style, and it will say, given what you've told me so far about blah, 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 blah. All right. So homeostasis we covered, right?
Yep.
And what we've done recently is we've added acquisition, cooperation, division of labor, and information to this list of first principles, because that's sort of what we want to get across here. The evolutionary computation of persistence by discovery one, right? And I'm getting that from the use of the term the common cortical algorithm, which is what brains do.
Right.
All right. The next is we talk about from embodiment, we've been to homeostasis, and now we're talking about sensation. We have updated this list and we have updated these, right? And how it collects information necessary, etc.
Yes.
And then we start out with what is describing sensation or stimulation, which is what's a neuron. And we walk through this part of it. We moved up to this part, vibration, the kinds of things that it can adapt to, the kinds of neurons, and what they actually do. They transmit a pulse of frequencies. And in the result, they produce, whether you want to talk about it as organization or disambiguation, is rather whether you want to look at it as a positiva or a negativa.
Yeah.
Right. And then we go to how does a neuron function?
Right.
Now, normally we write things in this order. I wrote this section as text. Starting from input to output and using tree analogy, a neuron consists of, and it goes through the spine heads and dendritic spines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If the axon must transmit long distances, et cetera, the axon then trunk continues by feeding and thus the charge for one another. In addition, axons can transport resources back and forth. The result is the visible brain as gray matter, unmyelinated axons is gray matter, consisting of dense neurons and microcolumns, regions, and lobes that calculate, and white matter consisting of myelinated axons that transport signals over distances. So I feel like we've got the basic structure and process of a neuron there, right? What I asked you last time was if we could use the illustration here, right, of a neuron and the types of neurons. You agreed to that.
Right.
And so then we asked the question, how do neurons compute? And well, God damn it, I do this for the first few times, every time we get into this. How do neurons compute? And they do it with their dendrites.
Yes.
Which I think is interesting because I think people thought that all the processing happened in the cell body. It's basically the thing it's basically an oil drum that collects drips until it reaches a volume at the axon terminal, says, I need to go potty now. Right.
Right.
So I didn't feel good about this section. Because I asked one of the AIs to help me with it, and I just feel like it's not as clear as everything else we do. So far I have two questions. Is this textual form right, or as has done here? Do we've got bullet points for this kind of energy. Notice it reorganized these. Do we have bullet points for the types of neurons? Right.
Okay.
We have the description of transduction and its properties. But when we get to how the neuron function, it doesn't continue this text format. It uses this format. I'm not sure, but I kind of prefer this.
The bullet points or the text?
The text. And I don't know if that's right. I could write the text and then put the bullet points afterward as a summary, or I could just.
I like that. I like that because then it preserves both. Would categorize it as a summary. Because that's a minor addition. It's a half a page.
I think that's probably better. Okay. All right.
You've satisfied both categories of readers then, based upon their preference for how the information is to be presented.
I'm a fan of narrative with the parentheticals, right?
Right.
I mean, I learned that from Popper, and it has served me. It's to the point where people who read my stuff don't even recognize it anymore.
Right.
They just read it as what it is. And this I like because it reinforces the parts, right, that are through here. Now, when you got to this part, let's see if I go, each neuron can have thousands of dendritic branches, blah, 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 simultaneously. It cuts off this part. This is a much briefer bulleted point. Oh, by the way, this should be numbered because it's a sequence?
Okay.
Expected you to say no.
See if you can manage it. But look at that.
And these should be bullets. It's not a sequence.
It looks like the same sequence, but with longer text.
Well, with this, so here's how we should go. What the hell does that mean? That is not an operational description of what the structure of the network of dendrites provides, right? All right. This kind of, so it's unique. So what? So it doesn't answer the so what.
So this allows, or this, right?
Yep.
This is how, right?
Yeah. So what? How does?
Yes.
Right. So I'm gonna move that one up there. Right. Yeah, so I'm gonna say I can sit there and work through it. What I'd like to know is if this thing can do it, okay?
Right.
You know, you ever get the thing where you've collected too many coffee cups and pens and cell phones and stuff on and wallets and shit on your desk so that you can't use your mouse or your I got that problem going on. How clean is your desk? I'm afraid to ask you this.
It's a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah, I've always had a messy desk.
We'll say this, it serves me well, however.
Yes. I just want things to be within easy reach.
Right, and it gets out of hand sometimes.
Oh, that's true.
It's like, that's too much easy reach. I need to get some more. I need to make some of this more difficult to reach.
You mean, yeah, exactly. Do I really need this pile of business cards right there?
That is not necessary.
Yeah. Do I need the 2 pairs of eyeglasses?
I've got 1, 2, 3 right visible right now. 4, no, 4. And they're all the same. They're just cheaters. Which I hate to admit to the public who sees my white beard and thinks I'm old. it suggests something that maybe that's a correct assessment. What's the prompt?
What can you see?
I see you typing in there. I'm listening. What are you trying to tell it to do? Oh, I see. Me, I'm finding that I need to keep some pages that are dedicated to how you utilize the AI and the technology, because it's quite interesting. It's not a small thing, okay? You think it's a small thing and you're in error.
Hey, boss. I tell you, you're always right.
Oh, I know.
Telling a lot of people they're always right lately. It's kind of grating on me a little bit.
That means you're doing good. You're finding limits. Wow.
Look how fast it is.
It's another subscription service, I presume.
Well, they said what they've done is they've done a lot of little things to improve the training and the performance.
Okay.
But these, you used to sit here with me. It would take 1,001. It would take seconds. Now
Yes.
it's responding in 200 or 300 milliseconds.
Very impressive.
So let's see if it did a good job. I doubt it. Each neuron can have thousands of dendritic branches, which is each covered with numerous synaptic connections. This branch structure creates a network and receives signals from many sources simultaneously. It's akin to an intricate circuit where each branch adapts to play a specific role in processing inputs. So what? It enables a neuron to integrate a vast amount of information, facilitating complex computations. Blah, blah, blah. That doesn't, that's fucking redundant. Each synapse on a dendrite is unique and specialized in particular types of signals. Synapses vary in neurotransmitter receptors, which can either excite or inhibit the neuron's activity. A single dendrite can host synapses with different neurotransmitters and functions, meaning that one branch is capable of processing a diverse set of signals at once. This allows dendrites to process and integrate multiple types of inputs. Yes, fucking redundant. It needs a frame. Non-linear computation process complex. Yeah, fuck you. Yes, it's too stupid. It's too stupid to do this. Okay, I have to figure this out.
Well, that was a good thought.
Oh, it's too stupid. However, if I come up with the concept, it will probably be able to integrate it because it seems to do that fairly well. All right, so the difference is the job of computing a variety of precision by compounding effective timing, temporal summation, timing, and location.
Yep.
Or just the extraordinary complexity of dendritic computation in a single neuron. Well, why do I want to say that? Neurons can accomplish this because neurons can
They integrate. I would introject it's excitatory and inhibitory sources.
The problem is it's unintrospectable.
That's correct. It's just providing an output that is, it's like in a black box, right?
Yeah.
May now be introspected upon. There you go. That's right.
So
It's a dynamic network too.
mhm.
Here's a question. Is the neuron wants attention, okay?
Right.
How is it fed back upon when it does get attention? By dendrites forming to attach to it to seek that attention?
Two things that happen. The immediate back propagation. The second thing is memory first of all is serialization. These things happen over time, so it happens more than once.
Right.
Or the frequency. What's the frequency of a neuron can? What is the max frequency of a neuron cycle? (200 hertz to 1,000 hertz. I mean, 1,000 hertz a lot, right? I mean,
Yes.
right. So it can, in time, respond to, let's say, almost infinite number of input combinations of inputs.
Right.
It can respond to them every 200 to, is it milliseconds? Thousandths of a second, milliseconds, right? 200 to 1,000 hertz or milliseconds. And what's the other way around? 1,000 down to 200.
Yes.
Right. And it can, and in that so it's the repetition that feeds it. It's the back propagation that feels it. And it's the recitation from memory that feeds it. So it's at least three cycles. So the initial stimuli, the in time, the temporal, right? The back propagation, once it fires, it gets a back propagated signal. And then finally, when if it's used constantly by the mind, yeah, I said there's four actually, then it's continuously activated. And then if it's used in recall, excuse me, it's used during sleep for producing long-term memories, it's reinforced. And when you recall it, it's reinforced. So you have this long way of reinforcing. Now, the second question you were asking, which was correct, was, so what does that mean? It means that the neuron is able to, and the glial cells around it are able to produce the chemicals necessary to expand the number and reach of dendrites, their spline, is it splines or spines? I can't remember. I always get that wrong. And what's the thing at the end of the spine? I just wrote it here. The spine heads. It's a spine and spine heads, right? And at the same and the other end, it can expand the axon terminals, just like it expands the spines and the spine heads. And so you get the root part working, and which is more like the dendrites, and you get the tree part working, the branches part working more like the axon terminals. So what happens is it gets activity generates demand for resources, which is then fed by the neuron itself and supported by glial cells, supported by the blood flow that brings resources to the white matter and gray matter.
It's a trophic function.
Right. And so they're like anything else. They compete for attention, and attention needs food.
Right.
I felt like I was not answering your question there.
Well, it doesn't, it's not causally related. It's like the neuron gets attention, but how does it get a signal that it deserves that attention?
When it gets the attention, right? That means that it sent information on, right? But it got feedback from processing the charge. So if you look at like a neural microcolumn, sort of 80 neurons in there around 6 layers. There's feedback within the layers. And there's
but it's like this, it goes to this, Kurt. There's two forms of feedback. There's via positiva and via negativa.
Right.
It's like that didn't help. Don't do that anymore. And then there's do that some more.
Right, but doing that, don't do that anymore. Okay, yes, don't do that anymore is also feedback. You might be told to suppress it, but yeah, because what you're saying is no, because the dendrites will form by anything that wants to talk to it. So an inhibitory neuron, which is they're usually small, right?
Right.
You can see them most of the time. The little small, and there's zillions of them. That's how it looks to me. The thing says the ratio is 1.5. The data says 1.5 to 1. I'm like, okay, you say so. But the inhibitory neurons, they're sort of like, they look a little bit like what's a dandelion head?
Okay.
Right, and they just go, yeah, right.
Don't do that.
Well,
don't do that. They say don't do that.
Yes, and so they inhibit things, but that's not a negative. In other words, inhibition isn't a negative thing, right? In other words,
no, it's just a thing,
right? It's just information. It says, okay, we don't want that answer here, right? And we don't want that answer over here. And there's a lot of inhibitory near the upper layers, layers 5, 6. I can't remember which layer it is. There's a lot up there. Because what you're trying to do is only transmit very clear signals to other regions of the brain.
Right.
So what are we trying to get across here?
Yes.
We're trying to give a person who is able to follow us so far about the mechanical operation of the thing, a view into how the dendrites perform a massively parallel computation, which is
Yes.
all the collection of neurons we call the brain is doing a massively parallel computation.
Yes.
And pass it on to the next hierarchy of massively parallel computations, right? That's all it's doing. But when we say massively parallel computation, I can see what that means in my mind, right? I can visualize a brain doing that, right? But what is that? How do we explain what computation means to a bunch of people? Because it's like you have a whole bunch of pachinko. I mean,
Yes.
every dendrite has a pachinko machine at the end,
Right.
consisting of all the stuff that comes into it. And the signals come in fast or slower or whatever.
Right.
And then and so this machine is dropping these balls in, and some of them are, let's do red and blue, right? Some of them are stop, and some of them are red and green. Let's do that. For the red colorblind people. For the red ones say stop, and the green ones say go, right? And so the next thing is that the farther away that the receptor is from the cell body, the more resistance it encounters on the way down. So if you want to, you can get a very subtle say no here, but you can actually have an axon terminal actually attached right to the goddamn cell body.
Okay.
And that's like, okay, force feeding.
Don't do that.
So the complexity of that competition, that computation is hard, is vast. The problem is conveying what computation means. And so the reason I use the Braille and cup analogy with this part is like I like using the audio analogy with the consciousness part.
That's right. That's right.
Sort of put it together by using that analogy, because I mean, that's what they're doing. The neurons are looking for Braille. The difference is the fucking vocabulary is infinite.
Yes.
Right. And that's
it's a big coffee house full of a lot of conversations.
Correct. And what you're trying to do, Jesus, I love you. So this is what's happening is just like you can go into a coffee house and you're trying to say what's important to listen to here, right? There's a competition for the neuron's attention.
That's right.
Say, okay, this is actually important. So a competition with a lot of stimuli of positive inputs, well, what is it? No, it's just being flooded.
That's right.
A balance of positive and negative. Some light effects way at the end of a dendrite on one of its receptors, or plugged right into the goddamn cell body.
Right. So the question is, this cell body is decide. Say this cell body is trying to decide, how do we grow to understand, right? Because I'm going to change these patterns of dendrites and spines and all these pieces to adjust the signal that I'm putting out, because somebody's listening, right?
Well,
and they need coherence in the signal.
Okay, so there's
it has to do with survival, and it's like it has to have some trophic functions that it takes in.
Okay, so the principle of sparse activation. What it wants is 3 clear messages instead of 1,000 unclear messages.
That's right. So it's taking in 1,000 unclear messages and converting it into one clear message with positive or negative results. But it's like we don't have a mechanism by which we understand the trophism which changes it.
We've got the story with the Braille, and then we can use the Braille coffee shop. Sure, we can do that with everything.
But it goes like this. It's like, Kurt, it's like, okay, I'm seeking attention. I'm a neuron seeking attention.
Yeah.
Picking up a lot of signals. And I'm like, how do I know how to adjust the dial on all the inputs?
Okay, so let's answer that question. All right, I can
Right.
increase spine heads.
So I could attract axons to my dendrites and to my other parts, right?
Yep.
Or I can repel them in some fashion, right? And ignore their inputs.
Okay, this is the first one. Increase spine heads, increasing synapses. All right, increase spine head, increase possibility. I can
Right.
increase.
It's attraction and repulsion.
I can increase spines, increase. So it's really increase, decrease, right?
Right.
So like you can grow a dendrite in 30 minutes and lose it in the next 30.
Sure. But it's
But,
like, how does it know? That's the question.
give me a second here. It knows because
I know.
I got to
Sorry.
get because no, we're gonna always the thing of how do you tell the story? Increase local size, increase spines.
But I think it's not necessary to reiterate all the bits.
I want to think it through. I do my thing,
I
right?
understand. You do it your way. I won't try to stop you with a hat tip to Uncle Kenny. Which I do. I greatly revere the man. Just so it's understood.
People think we do. The funny is, they actually know we listen to them.
And that's okay. We do. We're listening. But leave your comments, boys and girls.
All right, so and the other side is
Axons.
axon axon terminals. I'm gonna get this wrong.
Trunks and terminals.
And boutons.
Yes.
I have beautiful videos of this stuff happening.
So there's neurotropic hormones that I'm pointing at here.
This last one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know there's a function there which is if we look at a nerve, it's like a muscle, okay?
Mhm.
Because it's like if you work it, it will get better and stronger and more frequency potential. Right? Because it gets more supply because it's demanding more from the suppliers of the resources necessary to create the action potential. I like how you do this. You're as the II, which may supply nonsensical output, but that's okay.
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. That's the thing. You know, what I feel like when I talk to you, I think I think with you, right? I get to share your prefrontal cortex, right? I recognize I'm struggling to say, okay, how will I get this across so Brad will understand and give me feedback, and then you give me feedback. It's wonderful. Well, it does the same stupid thing.
That's right.
Right?
Thank you for that.
I didn't mean it to come across.
I know, but I found
I think
it
you
amusing
suggested
anyway.
it could be interpreted.
Okay.
So we have repeated, so I'd repeated, I already went over this, right? Uh, frequency of stimulation. Okay. Yeah, but I think this is produced all over the place, right? Do you know where BDNF is produced?
What is BDNF? No, I do not.
It's basically the equivalent of growth hormone for neurons.
Sure, sure.
Stimulation. Okay. Yeah, but it doesn't tell me why. Where is BDN produced? I think it's also in some couple of weird places, like a gland or something. Where it's produced. And what generates its production? So
Yes. What's the signal to tell it to produce it?
neuron.
That's interesting. I do fear we dig too deep.
We can always simplify once we know we're not when we simplify, we're not wrong.
Right?
Yeah, this is what I was thinking. It's in the amygdala? That makes no fucking sense. It's basically everywhere. Synaptic activity. The activation to the neuron triggers. Ah. It's just what you'd think.
That's interesting.
Basically work. It's like basically a muscle. Yeah, but
Yes.
all I care about is where is the shit produced.
Those are generating functions.
Signaling pathways. Oh, it happens it's like I said, it happens in the neuron. Yeah, but I know it happens elsewhere. Neural activity. Yeah, so fuck you. So
It's a bad question.
Okay,
that was a fair question. That's a better question. That works.
thank you. I know this already. I even knew the calcium channel.
That was good.
Okay, so wait a minute.
So if we look at it as inhibitory and excitatory function.
Wow, I didn't know.
First, what's this?
I want you to go on that thing, but I didn't realize that that it can be taken up at the synaptic terminals as well and transported back to the.
That's what I'm looking for right there, because it has to be some way to feed back and not intrinsic only.
Okay, so I need one more question because I know this. I know this happens. I don't know if BDNF happens.
Okay.
Transmission of a neuron across. Transmission from another neuron across the synapse and transmitted to the cell body. And then lastly, you have, I'm pretty sure that there is a means by which BDNF is excreted into the I don't know what do you call the region, what do you call it? between. I think but
Huh.
I can't. I know what I'm thinking. I know what I'm thinking of. I can't think of what you are correct.
How so?
Extracellular space. Fuck it. I gotta go. Is secreted into the extracellular space where it can influence neighboring neurons. Neuron cell body. It's just, I know that. Vesicular transport, microtubules at the axon. There's those goddamn microtubules that gets Sir Roger all excited that there might be some quantum spirituality happening in producing consciousness. I love Sir Roger, but he's a bit of a twit when it comes to these things. You can't stop. I love him because he's the example I use. If Einstein used pictures, he uses pictures. Pictures are good, right? If you are using math without pictures, it's not good, right? If you don't have a picture, then you don't know what your math is doing, it's describing.
Right, that's fair.
But when he gets into this whole thing of consciousness is a product of microtube, dude, it's just, no. Quantum effects at that level. Yeah, and I was so funny. What's her name came on? I love when she comes on and disrespects the stupidness of some scientific issue. I mean, it's so obvious. She's like, this is an argument I've made forever. And she comes on, and it's like a little clip. I should go find it so I can like have it on my desktop and play it all the time.
Absolutely.
Look, the quantum world is very noisy and very.
Yes.
It takes a whole lot of quantum activity to make a protoparticle.
That's right. That's right. That's
right.
right.
It takes a lot more to make a particle.
Yes, we're in agreement. We're in agreement.
So when you say, well, it takes a lot to make a photon. Well, by the time the subatomic background can construct a thing that can persist and convey information in time, we can see it.
Yes, it'll be visible. We agree. It'll leave a little tracing.
Oh my!
That was pretty rude. I like it though, Kurt. What I find interesting is that you like people who are as rude as you are.
Like you?
Yes, sir.
You're just nicer about it.
Yes, people like
you
me.
Proper Southern manners.
Oh my. This is a good little work. So you think about this, it's like the neuron does not want to have too many inhibitory functions. It wants to do stuff. It wants to be excited.
Oh, absolutely.
So if it gets unexcited enough, it's going to inhibit the growth.
They literally starve. This is the next question. I want to read this so I get the next question. So,
yes.
Okay, I know glial cells feed this thing, right? But how else does this thing get fed? Because if I'm growing, I got to get fed. So let me so we can do that.
Okay.
When an action potential, action, it causes an influx of yes, I know. The voltage, see, we don't talk about calcium ions or anything other of that because that makes people go googly-eyed. We don't use formula and we don't use chemistry names.
Okay.
This calcium influx triggers a BNF containing vesicles with within the plasma membrane. Interesting. The plasma membrane.
Well, that's very interesting. So they're already in the plasma membrane and they get released.
Fascinating. Is that the cell body? Where is that?
The plasma membrane is the cell wall, the cell membrane. Cell membrane.
I think so, but you got to be careful with these.
I like that when you ask.
Well, it's because
there's no wall there. Don't take the wall out. Oh well.
Lipid bilayer, yes. If you said lipid bilayer, I would have.
That's it. That's it.
All right, okay.
It's interesting that it exists. They exist there. They're stored there, and then they're poked and released.
Basically fat cells? I mean, is that the equivalent of fat cells? Yeah.
Well, it's like it's not a cell. It's just like a little.
Well, I'm not trying to compare it to the body, right? It is the
It's like
analogy.
it's like the lipid bilayer has little vesicles in it that are
Yes.
containing those BDNFs.
So now we have,
Fascinating.
I know. And so when I say it has, where does it say? I say advertise to the local fluid up here. Remember when I wrote
Yeah.
that? That's, I said, I know it happens. I somehow.
Yeah, what's it? This one is intracellular.
Where you, I'm confused.
Bottom, the last answer said it was into the intracellular space.
Yeah, this is called local fluid, which is intracellular space. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna ask. What is the intracellular?
Everything that has a cell, it's just a whole cell.
Oh, intracellular. Okay, what's between cells?
The extracellular space.
Do you have to be a dick all the time?
Almost all the time. Except when I'm not conscious.
For the audience, this is why I love working with Brad. You know, there's actually a problem in working in history with my career, is that almost nobody will talk to me like you do.
Oh my Lord, extraordinary. That's a high level of respect. I thank you for it.
Too intimidated. I'm like, you don't do me any good when you know. You know, it's no good. You're no good to me. Stephen was my favorite because he's so funny. He would be so deferential, well-mannered. He would take long, sensitive explanations, whatever, right? You know, and of course I know what's coming, but he's so fucking charming. You know, it doesn't bother you, you know? I mean, this is why he's the guy that takes care of customer issues. Right?
That's right. He knows how to sell it, right?
He's great. But and even Jim would be okay, but he wouldn't say, well, that's stupid, very often anyway.
Oh my. So pull that last down. Yes, yes. It's just everything that's not in, but it's between the cells, right?
Right, it's water. This is what I was, so the extracellular space. Okay, so
it gets it can get the BDNF because it pulls it, it stores it in the cell membrane. And then when it gets an action potential, it gets released into the cell, which gives it more BDNF, which allows it to attract more other dendrites or axons, excuse me. There you go. What a crazy thing to be asking a crazy computer that it knows the answer. It will tell you something.
it's just, you know, how if I wanted to know that, even with the internet,
That's just some work.
I'd do 5 searches, right? I'd read 4 different
12 articles, man.
right? And I'd be like, okay, here's what it is. Okay, and I just, so I mean, oh. Okay, where is it?
Right.
You're going through too much detail. Secretion. Plasma membrane. These are the exercises.
It's good. What's interesting because you're looking at you talk about distributions of potentials, right? Distributions of populations. And it's like the nerve is doing this random thing. It's fairly random, but it has causal directionality. And it's like, it goes, that didn't work. I need more, I need to be stimulated more so that I can grow better. Right. And it's like, that didn't work. So I need to stop doing whatever that was. And I will start.
I think you're right, but it's more like if I got fed here, I have to devote energy to it.
Right, but it's like I don't know that what I'm gonna do is gonna get me more fed.
Let's actually.
So I'm randomly, I'm a neuron, I'm gonna be a nerve cell, okay? And I get fed because I'm being all excited and I'm getting more stuff, and then I'm gonna put it out, and I don't know what it's gonna do.
Well, let's hold on. Okay, so two different pieces here. The BDNF is produced within the within the what's the thing in the nucleus, within the nucleus of the cell body, and then of the cell, and then works its way out into the wall, and then is secreted through the wall, right? That's
Okay, it can come, it can be, it's stored in the wall,
right.
And then can be put into the intracellular fluid and moved around.
Or it can broadcast into the.
You can go out into the extracellular space.
That's
It's going to attract it. It's going to attract an axon if it does that.
That's it. Because when you see them working, you have these. You see the axons doing a lot of work trying to find dendrites.
That's right.
It's funny as hell, but yeah. I don't want to say that.
Oh my.
Yeah, you knew where I was going. You knew where I was going. All right, I'm not going to say it.
Say no more, kids.
It's like I wish mine.
This is a family-friendly show.
This is not. Our content is not marked child appropriate. I don't.
But it's random, okay? Do you get this randomness to it?
No, I think it's not random. So I want to get to this. So I said there was one part, right? When it's successful, it generates BDNF.
Yes.
It then can use as a resource. It can store, use as a resource, or if it's getting a lot of it, it can broadcast with.
Right.
Right. So broadcasting into this extracellular right?
Yes.
Fluid. Now, that area is what axons search through.
They're looking for that.
They're looking for that. Right?
Yes.
Right. And so I know there's other things they look for, because there's like 32 things. There are 33 things they look for. But that's an example. Now, neurons nearby can also take up this BDNF.
That's right.
So they can say, hey, I need fucking help here. Right.
That's right. So
Right,
it's like, so the axon can take it up from the synapse because it's detected an extra dose of this stuff. It's like, I need to build this synapse up a little bit.
Right. So, I mean, we get that now. Now we have the problem of, but okay, great. Okay. That's how we learn to grow, right?
Right.
But what feeds a neuron so that it can grow?
Okay. That's interesting.
That's the other half of it. We studied the output before we had studied the input. Oh, God damn it. So it's permeable to glucose.
Yep.
Astrocytes, which is a glial cell, can convert
Energy. Makes energy.
convert glucose to lactate. Right? Lactate the extracellular space. Neurons can take up lactate and convert it back to the same thing. So there's a cycle. Oxygen is the oxygen I knew about.
Basic nutrition.
Bloodstream.
There we go. Neurotrophic factors.
Yeah, I know that. Okay. This is the what I'm looking for. This is all obvious.
Summary.
Neurons are fed and supported by a combination of energy sources, glucose and lactate, essential nutrients, blah, 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 neurotropic factors and supportive rules, and the supportive rules of glial cells. The blood supply and blood-brain barrier ensure that the neurons receive necessary nutrients and oxygen. Intercellular components like micron play critical as energy production, and structural integrity to these elements, much go function, maintain their health.
So it goes like this. What I'm trying to come to is a summary here, right? Which the and I would summarize what we have come to here, which is go to the very left-hand work that we're on, go up a little bit. So we have these parts, and they are subjected to trophic factors that encourage the development of the system to provide more coherent information.
Sure.
And I want to leave it simple like that because it's like it's too dense. It's too much information.
I don't want to give them all. I just want to know I'm right.
You
If
are
I say
right.
something,
Shoot, you need more than my own assurance.
it's such a dick.
Yes, sir. Because okay, so let's look at this. See, you see frequency of stimulation. Under there, I would put I would put an indent, right? Under frequency of stimulation is that it's a successful firing, right? Yields atrophic factors.
Yeah, see, I don't, this, I'm gonna see, what does trophic mean? It's rather nourishment.
But it nourishes the development of a network that is coherent. And we would talk about it in terms of a set of neurons acting as a neural net.
Okay. What did I want to accomplish?
Right.
All right. How
And organize.
does it cooperate?
Okay.
Okay, I lost our. I was really. I went sideways on this. How do they know to grow?
There's pruning process that occurs as well. And how does that work? Right? What causes it? Yeah.
Survival. It's not just growth.
These connections instead of they.
What'd you say?
It's like the sentence below, how do they know to grow? Which is these connections, right? Because the pruning is the via negativa of it.
So it's neotropic before. Microglial.
So if you look at say an inhibitory neuron, right? An inhibitory neuron is going to say, don't do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's inactive. When is it inactive? If the other neuron never fires, it's inactive. I don't need to be here.
Right.
I'm not providing any value to this neuron because it's never firing anyway. It's too much inactive.
Hey, let me get to that.
Activity dependent process.
Okay, now you went back, you just had an issue and I want to go. What the fuck does that mean? I lost what you were saying. I needed to ask it a question. What were you gonna say? What were you saying?
So an inhibitory neuron
Mhm.
is sending out a do not activate signal to the receptor neuron. Okay. And if the other neuron never fires, then I don't need to be transmitting it. Don't activate signal as much.
That's not true. No. Because all it cares about is that there's a signal transported across the synapse. Doesn't care
Yeah,
whether
but it's not listening.
no, that's not true. If I'm an inhibitory neuron and
Yeah.
I'm coming up against a neuron, when I tell it to inhibit, I release a negative charge into across the
Yes.
synapse. That accumulates in the cell body. But as far as the synapse, the bouton and the cleft, no, they've succeeded. And as far as the neuron knows, it's succeeded. It doesn't care what the charge is. It only cares or not. So it's the accumulation of these inhibit
Right.
and excitatory things that produces up. So when you're talking about it fires, that sends a recursive cell back to the neuron. But I don't actually know if any information which preserves the connections backwards through the system. But I'm not really sure.
I
That's
understand
a
what
lateral I'm not sure if that comes in this way or yeah, it doesn't come back.
right. Right, but it's like there's a relationship between the inhibitory neuron and the one that is trying to be excited. When the neuron that is not being excited will die. It cannot send neurotropic factors out if it's not getting excited enough. I would say inhibit the pyramidal, yeah.
You tell me this is a stupid question. Watch. Like I have a vague idea of what. I can't tell if it's doing anything.
It's thinking.
Should be a little circly dot there somewhere.
It's not circling or dotting. We'll copy the question. There you go.
I love it when AIs talk dirty to me. Yeah, I would need an example. Okay. Okay, now do the same.
Hmm.
Doesn't like me to, doesn't want to let me read until it's done.
It's rough, isn't it?
The activity across the synapse.
Whoa.
That doesn't tell me if there's activity. So I'm not getting the answer I'm looking for. Yeah. It's not quite what I'm asking. Okay. Like a reduced activity. Okay. I see.
Pyramidal cell.
No. Of the, we call it,
Synapse.
doesn't stop, doesn't slow or stop, but the neuron, it causes the neuron not to fire.
Oh, maybe that it fires too much despite my my inhibition.
Well, I want to know what, okay, let me get that. Okay, particularly the activity of the neuron doesn't slow or stop, it causes the neuron not to fire such that your
Pyramidal cell.
yeah, that's
Right.
this should be an obvious, this should be obvious. I think I know what the, okay. That's what we're looking for. But how? But basically, and if the pyramidal cell is not firing, it will reduce. It doesn't know what to do other than reduce in general. So it will reduce what it has to in order to stay alive, basically.
The neurotrophic factors, I think.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm now, okay, great.
Does that help at all?
Well, I'm trying to get, we're doing a lot of work. I'm getting tired. To try to write this section over.
Right.
And when we were trying to work on this section, I said, this doesn't tell me, this doesn't tell me the story I need, like this story, right? To be able to explain what computing means.
Right.
I need that story. In order to do that, I wanted to know the mechanisms by which it survives.
Does that right there.
Huh?
How neurons survive, cooperate, organize, grow, and prune.
Right. But this actually is part of the next question, right? How do you physically?
What's interesting to me is how detailed this neurology is. It's basic functioning to understand how the brain works.
But everything else.
To generate coherence.
Yeah.
And it's way more detailed than I anticipated having been. Or the essential nature of it for the conversation in the context of embodiment.
We've got to solve a couple of problems. I'll reiterate. One is we've got to get the key points across, primarily the correspondence between the observed, the relation, the persistent relations or constant relations, or the whatever, the contingent relations that exist in the universe.
Yes.
And the neural structures that identify those same relations.
Yes.
Right. And then we have to assemble those relations, which consists of very low level senses, into into what we call senses,
Yes.
which can convey contextual meaning,
Yes.
then can be assembled. So if I need to get down to that level of constant relation, and that's because just like we talked about the first principles of the physical world, starting with entropy and all the way up through assembly, right, to get to, this is the same process. That explains the physical world, that how it adapts. But this is how it recognizes the physical world.
Yes. Yes.
All right. And so we have to learn to recognize the physical world so we can act on it. So this is the thing, is that I'm not, if you go, we finish this piece, the senses from here on up make a lot of sense.
Yes.
Right. But if we don't explain basically the physics of neurons,
Yes.
right, the equivalent of the physical, then we're not getting across the same first principles in this section that we did in the physics, and that we're going to convey by saying, well, look, we identify the real world.
Yes. Yes.
And we want to take that and say, okay, just like assembly by utility of charge is useful in the real world, in the physical world. Assembly by cooperation between signals in space and time,
Yes.
do in the neurons, just as cooperation between people in space and time does in the, at the level, which then we've made this connection from the first principle of the universe across all three domains of the physical, the cognitive, and the demonstrated, the physical, cognitive, and the demonstrated behavioral.
Yes.
I'm not unconscious of your concern of the detail here, but this is sort of like the grammars.
No, I agree. I'm in agreement with you, because it's like it's unexpectedly essential.
Yes.
This detail, and it's like, but what's interesting to me is it turns into charges. It's just positive and negative charges, and they are reinforced by feedback mechanisms based on utility, right, at higher levels. Yes. And I don't know how deep into the belly of it you need to go, but we
don't want to go down. If we say positive, negative, that's as far as we got to go. That's what
I think. And it's inhibitory and excitatory.
That's it.
And it's like, there's feedback mechanisms based on utility at higher levels of comprehension or coherence, right? And it's like, I found this exercise to be a deep dive, okay? But I think it was useful. But I'm growing weary too, Kurt. Are you weary too?
Oh, I mean, for me, it's 7:30, but I love working with you. It's really rewarding. But when I have to, when it's like,
man,
we had to go deep down into this to solve that problem. Okay, but did that problem only made us understand we're not wrong? So now we have to we still have the problem of how do we explain their survival in a narrative, and then how do we get down to how do we compute with dendrites in a narrative? And
that's right.
It's going to be like the last time. We're just going to get to where we understand it. I'm going to spew it out, and you're going to go, no, do it.
Yeah, that's right, Kurt.
And that's what's going to happen.
Wait, so do you feel satisfied with our conversation today?
I wish I had another 45 minutes of energy, and I don't.
I'm feeling this myself. Having been a long day already. Let me just look at the clock. Good Lord. I've been at it for 13 and a half hours.
Yeah, I know.
And I want you to know I appreciate every minute of it. It's just like something else, though. Like I say, I never expected to go this deep into the neuronal functionality, physiology and their activities.
I'm surprised how much I've forgotten.
It's amazing, and it's like, but it was a very useful exercise for me. But I think that I hope that you've gathered enough information to generate a narrative that you will find useful.
I don't know how busy tomorrow is. I don't think it's very. But you gave me so we did the Braille to coffee shop, Braille touch, the coffee shop sound model, I think gives us what we need to explain this. If I wish I could bring in, I can and I can use a model. I think gives us enough clarity because they are introspectable.
Yes.
That we can explain vision that is not introspectable.
Right.
So I need to make that story.
Yes.
And I think I'm going to try, but my belief is until we're talking about it together, it's not going to come out of me.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to try, but you never know. You never know.
Well, I hope that you found this as rewarding as I did, Kurt.
I did. But I would like to watching you learn educates me in how to frame things, right? So because it's I see the grains of sand and the leaves on the trees, right? I mean, this is a problem. So sometimes it's hard for me to come up with the narrative, but work at it, I can come up with a narrative. So you are, this isn't exactly foreign territory to you.
No.
Right? By the workings of the human body, right? But why is this particular discussion interesting? Why is the deep dive interesting?
Well, what's interesting to me was this is the detail, because it is the pruning and the trophic fat functions were understood, but it's like the detail of the causality of it was not. It was below the level. It was like quantum level understanding of it. And it's like distributions of probabilities is what we're referring to, seeking coherence. That's what it looks like is occurring here.
Yes.
And that story is not an easy one to explain in this context because it's so complex. Groups of neurons, which can be any size almost. And then there are so many layers of neurons that can be communicating with each other from the sensory to the output, which is like, okay, we're talking about very complex structures, but they have very simple operating procedures to detect coherence and then transmit coherent signals. So that's the seeking the causality of that. It was a little alien because it's below the level of what is interesting to people in my profession.
Yes.
But it's like it's essential for the telling of this story, and I respect and appreciate the opportunity to participate in the conversation detecting that story. Because we can do it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's not that hard. It's just it's simple stuff going on at just a huge array of simple things happening, and then describing it in a fashion that's understandable to a commoner, right? That's all. And I don't think it's that hard. I think it's doable.
Just did the Braille part in my head. I go from Braille to coffee cup to coffee house. I really like that.
I think it works.
Braille to cup to coffee cup to coffee house. To Braille to coffee cup to coffee house. Audio. Yeah. To coffee house visual. And let's do it that way. Braille.
Coffee cup.
Braille to coffee cup to coffee house sound to coffee house vision.
Yep.
We'll do that. And then that's the, and I've got to figure out how to make, I mean, I've already done this before, but without, I mean, it's one thing to do enumerate the dimensions and do the pictures and talk about it. It's another to write it so that it's readable, which is a different thing. All right, I love you, man. Thank you for spending the time with me. I gotta end the sharing here. Is that what's
okay, you stop sharing because I'm about ready to do my work.
You are. You're
I'm
doing.
going to remind the nice people who have been so pleasant. They did not disturb us one little bit. And they have another opportunity here. And I will encourage them to hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell, and then leave those comments and say, what a wonderful conversation that I was having coffee over. Right? I enjoyed it greatly, Kurt, and it's very interesting and inspiring in some fashion.
I love this subject. I don't know what's wrong with me, why I love this subject, but I love this subject.
It's that basic. It's that basic. It's essential. This is the most essential function of our consciousness that we're talking about here.
Fascinating. All right, I love you, man. Have a great day.
We'll chat tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye.